So it was about a week or two ago, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, you got to watch this video." Now, I got one of them TikTok accounts. I don't know if any of y'all got a TikTok account. I got a couple videos on it. I've tried a couple times, but I keep forgetting about it, to be honest with you. I forget about it, and then time goes by, and then I just forget all about it. But what reminds me about this TikTok account is that sometimes when I'm going through the Facebook feed, someone in their story will post one of their TikTok videos in my story. And so I'll click on it, and that'll remind me, oh yeah, how about that TikTok stuff? And so then I can click on it, and then all of a sudden I go into this TikTok web world, and that's my experience with TikTok so far. Well, a good buddy of mine was like, hey, check out this video. You are not going to believe it. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't believe it. I was like stunned to look at this video. I was like, this video is out there for everybody to see. And I was watching it, and like, you know when you watch them videos and all of a sudden you get nervous for the person in the video and your heart kind of stops and you pucker up a little bit. You're just like, ooh, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just get real tense. That is what happened when I was watching this video. Let me tell you what's going on. So there's this kid sitting on the couch. And this kid sitting on the couch, she's minding her own business. And this dad is sitting there also in the frame, and so they're being videoed. And you don't know what's about to happen. But evidently there's a mama, and the mama is over in the kitchen. Now, you can't see the mom in the kitchen, and it's not a sexist thing. I'm not saying that's where she should. I'm just saying that sounds like she was in the kitchen, okay? I have no proof she was in the kitchen, but that's where I think she was. I think she was in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, she says, hey, take out the trash. Talks to the daughter. Take out the trash. And the daughter looks back at the mama, and she says, shut up. She looks, and you can't see the mama. All you can see is the kid turn her head and say, shut up. And then all of a sudden, you see this daddy's face. And this dad looks at this kid, and he immediately gets up like he's about to beat the snot out of this kid. You know what I'm talking about? Like, he gets up, and all of a sudden, the mom comes running in. She's like, no, it's a joke. And, of course, the kid's like, it's a joke, Daddy. It's a joke. Right? That's what's happening. And I was like, oh, my gosh. So the mom and the kid were in on the joke. You know what I'm saying? Have any of y'all seen those videos? None of y'all want to? Okay, here's the deal. Let me just say, it's entertaining. Evidently, this is the thing. And there are tons of videos, like hours and hours, not that I've watched hours and hours, maybe a couple hours, but they're just of these videos where it's just a mom and the kid, and it's every time it's the mom. The mom is the instigator in the whole thing. The mom has gotten the kid, and they've set up a plan, and it's just to see the dad's reaction. My favorite one. The dad was playing video games. He had a headset on, and he was playing Call of Duty. And he had one of them headsets with the little microphone that comes right here. And I know sometimes, dads, we can have selective hearing. We're like, we can't, especially with the headphones on, we can't hear nothing in the room. You know what I'm saying? At least we think we can't hear nothing in the room. And all of a sudden, her son was sitting next to him, and can't remember what he was doing. Then all of a sudden, mom asked him to do something. And the boy looks over his mom and says, Mom, shut up. She's like, shut up, ask me about this. And all of a sudden, the dad stops playing. He heard that. He stops playing, and he looks back. You can tell he's looking back at the mama. And then she says it again. She's like, I told you, do this thing. And she's like, and I told you to shut up about it. And the dad is like, he's being calm. And he looks back and he goes, what did he just say? And she said, he told me to shut up. And all of a sudden, headphone comes off. The dad jumps up. The kid knows, boy, he's about to get it. And the cameras fall. The kid runs back. They've got a pool table in the next room. Evidently, they got this fancy little room. There's a gaming station. There's a pool table. The kid goes over the pool table, right? Over the pool table. Dad hurdles the pool table, gets on the other side. The kid has now crawled back under the pool table. The whole time, the mom is screaming, it's a joke, it's a joke. The dad has grabbed the kid by the ankle and is pulling him back out from the, and she runs over. She's like, it's a joke, it's a joke. And she's like, you got to be kidding me. She's like, yeah. And so they're now laughing. The dad is not happy. He is not happy. He is done. There's this moment that's about to happen in this room, right in front of your eyes. I'm going to read you something Jesus said, and your reaction is going to be the same as that dad. I'm going to read it to you, and you're going to say, what did he just say? I'll read it to you again. And then there's going to be something that happens on the inside of you. For some of you, it's going to be a little bit of anger. For some of you, it might be some embarrassment. For some of you, you might try to write it off. All of you will say, I'm not really sure Jesus said that. But all I want to do is read the words of Jesus. Now, Jesus, he doesn't launch right into it. He kind of prepares people for it. He kind of eases his way into this statement that I'm going to read to you straight from the mouth of Jesus. You see, we've been, since the beginning of the summer, we've had multiple series. And all we've done is we've taken up this one really long talk that Jesus gives, the very first talk in his public ministry. And we've taken that talk and we've broke it up into segments, and we call them series of talks or a collection of talks. But it's really just one big, enormous talk, and we're getting to the end of it. And you can find this in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. And Jesus, what we refer to this as is we call it Jesus 101. This is just Jesus' very first public address. He's trying to introduce a new way of living, a new way of understanding and seeing God, and a new way of interacting with him. And so he comes out, and if you're a Bible student or spent some time in the church or you're a Bible scholar, the more biblical name for this talk is the Sermon on the Mount. And so we kind of walk through this piece by piece. And he gets to the end, and he has something rather jarring to say, and that's when we're going to have that moment. But he kind of eases into it just a little bit. He doesn't just outright and say it, but still the reaction is the same. So I want to start with where he begins to ease into this statement. We're in Matthew chapter 7, verse 13, and this is Jesus beginning to ease into it. He says this, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. And many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." So he's looking at this crowd of people. He's been talking a lot about this is what life is supposed to look like. He begins to wrap up his talk about what life is supposed to look like. And he looks at him and says, hey, here's the deal. I want to start summarizing what I've been saying for the last little bit. And here it is. I want you to enter through the narrow gate. Because wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. And many enter through that. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Now immediately as I read this, as just reading your Bible, you just open it up and you start reading it, and you're like, hold on one second, Jesus. If we back up just a few verses, in fact, if you were here last week, then when you read that last word, maybe something comes to mind when he says, and only a few find it. Because the very verse before this, Jesus actually says, seek and you will find. In fact, he goes so far to say that everyone who seeks will find. Which then brings me to the place of saying, if everyone who seeks finds, why is it that only few find? That's because only few seek. Now, that seems weird to me, though. So Jesus is painting this picture. He's painting this picture of there's two roads. And these roads represent the choices we have in life. And in particular, these two roads he's talking about represent the whole of our life. And he says there's a really narrow gate that's led to by a really narrow, small, thin road. And this one leads to life, and this one over here is this really broad, wide road, and this really enormous, huge gate. However, on the other side of the gate is not life, it's actually destruction. And then you get to choose. So not only does he tell you what's on the road, he also tells you what's at the end of the road, and then he says, hey, I want you to choose. If it were me, and he asked them, I think you should enter in through the narrow gate, because it leads to life. He says, I don't think you should enter in through the wide gate or the broad road because it leads to destruction. However, this is my observation. This is what Jesus is saying. My observation is many people take the wide road. Very few people take the narrow road. Why is that? It's because the wide gate and the broad road is easier. It's more convenient. And if we're being honest today, I don't know if I can say this as a pastor, but I'm going to give it a shot. Honestly, it's not that bad. Like the wide road and the wide gate, it's not that bad. In fact, I know a lot of people that are on that wide road and wide path, and they're good people. Like, I mean, they hadn't killed nobody. They hadn't stolen nothing. Not since they were in like elementary school when they took that gum that one time, but the mama told them took it back. You know what I'm saying? So they're decent people. I mean, they probably have kids on ball teams, and they probably do community service or do like it's not a bad road. It's not like that's a bad life. It's not a question of, in those moments of what's right and wrong. The better question is what's missing from it. When we look at the entire words of Jesus, we realize that Jesus says, I won't be on the wide road. I won't be there. I'm going to be missing, Jesus says. Jesus says, if you want to follow me, there's this other path, and it's narrow. It's not as wide. And you see, on this wide path, we've got freedom. We've got freedom and the ability to choose and the ability to kind of set our life up the way that we want to. The ability to say, you know what, this doesn't quite fit with how I want the world to work. And so this gives me some time or some places to explore, to kind of make up my own mind, all these things. Like, I like this over here. This is good. This is great. This is a good place over here. And this narrow road, it's so thin and so small, and Jesus is on it, and there's only one way to go, and I can't pass people over here, and I can't kind of make my own way. It's just this windy little road. It's just this trail. It's so dense and thick over here. There's only one way to get through here. Where over here, I've got so much freedom to kind of figure out what I like and what I don't like, and to move in and out of how I want to move in and out. So Jesus is saying, hey, that's a problem, because it's missing Jesus. You know, he sets them up with, let me make sure we're clear on this choice. But he doesn't stop there. We're not quite to the head-turning moment, but we're getting close. So he follows that up with Matthew 7:15 through 19, just the very next verse. He says this, and watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing. Inwardly, they're ferocious wolves. By their fruit, you'll recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. So he says, hey, here's the deal. There's two roads. One is really got a lot of freedom on it for you to kind of do what you want to, pick and choose what you want, take and shape your worldview. And the other one's this really thin, narrow road, and your worldview is shaped by wherever Jesus leads you. And that's kind of where it's going to happen. And there's not a lot of freedom over here in terms of I can just do whatever, whenever, and think however and whatever I want, that I actually have to take on the worldview of Jesus. I don't get to say, hey, this worldview stinks. Where over here, I have a lot of freedom to say, hey, this is what I like, this is what I can pick and choose. There's a buffet happening on the wide road. And I don't know why. There's just more chairs over here. That's why this is the wide road. I'm not saying all of y'all are wide road people. I just keep, this is thin, this is wide, so don't get offended, right? So I don't know. That's just kind of what's happening, right? That's what's going through Jesus' mind. And then he follows it up with, not only are these two roads, he says, watch out for these false prophets. Or a better way, watch out for these false teachers. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but the truth is they're ferocious wolves. Ferocious wolves. And now when I begin to think that, I think, okay, so if there's a costume on, and the costume is not for Halloween trick-or-treat, but it's actually like Halloween is my lifestyle, like this is what I'm going to do, like I'm going to be one thing on the outside, but on the inside I'm something completely different. I'm walking around masquerade style all the time. There's a little bit of deceit there, and that deceit begins to ooze out. I was like, oh, hold on one second. So from the outside, this looks really great. However, on the inside, there's some motives there that are messing this up. these false prophets, these false teachers. What do we have to be afraid of, Jesus? He says, because the truth is, this is why. You got to watch out, because these people will try and change my message. They'll try to change it. And I don't want you to listen to them. Hold on, Jesus, what do you mean? Now, the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about how you can take one little phrase that Jesus said, and you can make it fit and do whatever you want. You can take this one little phrase right here, and you can put it on a t-shirt or a bumper sticker or in a slogan somewhere, and you can make it say whatever you want it to say. Well, you have to look at the entirety of just what Jesus is saying. Hey, be careful, because people will try and change what I've said. And so he said, we begin to think about that. That makes me a little nervous. It's like, okay, so there's this road, and then there's people who teach about the roads. But Jesus is afraid, and rightfully so. He's kind of predicting the future. He says, hey, there are going to be people that come in, and they begin to teach you, and from the outside it looks fine, but the truth is there's some bad motives there, and they're actually going to lead you down the wrong path, and that's a bad thing. And that makes me a little nervous, but Jesus says, hey, don't worry about it. I'm going to tell you how to tell the difference between someone who's legit and who's not. And here's the way you tell the difference. In my mind, I was thinking, you know what, Jesus? I know what you're about to say. You're going to tell us we can tell by doctrine or theology. If the doctrine or theology, if it lines up, if they're saying the words of Jesus, and that's it. But Jesus says, no, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled just because somebody says the right things. He says, you'll be able to tell if they're legit or not by the actions, the results of what they say and do and feel and think. He said, take a look at the actions that happen, not just the words they say. Now, this is real for us. Let's dig in here for a second. This is real for us. This is legit. Because think about it. How many people have taken the words of Jesus and began to teach with them in some other arena where it just benefits them? Let's just talk about politics for a second. Oh, shoot, here we go. Let's just talk about it for a second. And this is the deal. Man, this is the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem with Democrats. You want me to tell you what's the problem with Democrats? Because Democrats love to say this. We care for the refugee and the poor. That makes us like Jesus, and they are wrong. And this is the problem with Republicans. You want me to tell you what the problem with Republicans is? We stand on a couple key social issues, and Jesus would do that, so that makes us like Jesus. And they are also wrong. Wrong. You know what makes you like Jesus? Being like Jesus. Jesus is saying, hey, be careful with the people who say, hey, I took a few words of Jesus and I put them on a t-shirt, my campaign slogan. I put it in a platform. I put it in a song you can remember. I put it on a button. I put it on a bracelet. I put it on my car. And I'm going to let this one piece, this one phrase of Jesus, this is what's going to define who I am. But the truth is, when you look at the rest of my life, it's so far from Jesus, it ain't funny. But on this one key issue, I got it right. And that makes me like Jesus. And Jesus is saying, I'm telling you 2,000 years before you show up on the planet. It'll sound good. But the truth is, look at their actions. Look at the actions. Let's look at the actions of folks who are all in on social justice issues, that are all about a Supreme Court ruling, but have never given a dime or a piece of time to any kid who's at risk or needs to be adopted or needs to be fostered, who's never been a respite care. I don't want to hear what you want to say, Republicans. I want to see what you want to do about it. Let's go to the other side. Be careful of the people who say, hey, look at the border crisis. It's so inhumane. I cannot believe these people would do this. Jesus says this about the immigrant, yet they give absolutely no money to the people who are on the ground in border cities, trying to do everything they can to actually live out what they believe. Who are not volunteering their time or giving sky miles for people to get there. I want to hear what you have to say, Jesus says. I want to see what you are doing. And now maybe we say, hold on, Clint, you've been a little harsh real quick. I haven't gotten to the head turner moment, because when I get to it, you'll realize why we've got to be harsh about this. It's about to happen. Like, I'm about to say it, and you're going to be like, what? Hold on a second. There's no way Jesus said that. I'm about to read it. He said it. You can look up in your own Bible. Because here's the truth. Eventually, false teachers, they create false followers. And false followers become false teachers. How do you think the teachers got to where they are? They were just a follower at some point. And they graduated themselves into a place of influence, and now they take whatever political ideology they've got, and that's just the hot button topic of today, and they leverage it for their own gain, and they put a little Jesus juice on it. And they say, hey, this is exactly what the world needs. No, the world needs Jesus, not some half-baked 1/5 version of it. This is why it's so important. This is why it's so important. Because this is what people will change. At the very beginning of this talk, Jesus said this. He said, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. You know what our world says now? Blessed are those who look out for themselves. And the meek deserve no place in power, because the meek are weak. Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. But instead, you know what they say? Blessed are those who are right and can silence those who oppose their view. And Jesus said, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. But they say, blessed are those who see to it that every ounce of accountability and consequence is leveraged against those who have done wrong. Cancel them completely. That's what they deserve. No mercy here. Jesus says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Yet, you know what they say? They say, know your enemies and pray for their destruction. Jesus said, don't have worry and anxiety in your life. I've got you. And our world says, worry and anxiety is just part of climbing the ladder. Don't worry about it. There's a pill for that. Jesus said, pray for the will of God. And the rest of the world says, if God was real, he wouldn't have disappointed you last time you prayed to him and he didn't give you what he wanted. Jesus said, I want to tell you, they're going to take my words and they're going to change them. So watch out. And this is why. This is not me talking. This is not my inference on it. This is not my retelling it. These are the exact words of Jesus. Jesus sets this up, and then here comes your, what did he just say, moment? Verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Let's start with the beginning. That's hard. The very first sentence says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Hold on one second. Now, there's a lot baked in there. First, you're saying, let me just get this straight, Jesus. You're saying people who know your name. And not only do they know your name, this Lord name, they also know your position, because Lord shows a place of authority. Not only do I know your name, I know the position that you hold as Lord. And you're saying that there will be people who know your name and who acknowledge your position, yet they still want to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, are you sure, Jesus? In fact, he says, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. In fact, he goes so far to say, many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not teach your name? Did we not tell people about you? Did we not spread your name? And then many will say, hey, did we not drive out demons in your name? Did we not do the miraculous in your name? And it's like, Jesus, is that what you're saying? Jesus, are you saying that there are people who know your name, know your position, told other people about you, did miraculous things in front of other people, and you're still going to look at them. And his words are, I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to say plainly, I never knew you. I don't know who you are. So get away from me, you evildoers. Now, here's the thing. When Jesus says the word evildoers, immediately I say, Jesus, but you just gave me a list of really good things that you said they did. They cast out demons. They did miracles. They told other people about you. Those are not evil things, Jesus. But now we're getting to it. Go back a few verses. That sheep in wolf's clothing. This motive thing. All of a sudden, this entire talk, which begins with these blessed are statements, which are contrary to the rest of the world that they're living in the first century, and very much contrary to the world we're living in. He says, this is the way life ought to be. And I know it's not going to be the same way everyone else in your world is seeing it. And I know it's not going to make complete sense to you, but just trust me. I'm not just looking at the road you're walking on. I'm looking at what's behind the gate you got to walk through. And believe me, the road behind the gate is infinitely longer than the road that leads to the gate. But we get so consumed with the short little walk we have called life and the ability to have as much freedom as possible to go back and forth how we want and not be confined to a worldview and not be confined to a black and white view of what is right and wrong and righteousness and unrighteousness. And we don't like that because it's too hard and it creates too many messes in our lives with other people who don't want to be a part of that. And so we say, we just like the wide road, Jesus. It gives us some leeway. It gives us some leeway. And Jesus is like, yeah. And the truth is, there's not much wrong with that road. Except for I ain't on it. And what's on the other side of the gate you got to enter through if you take that road. And Jesus is trying to communicate an urgency. He's trying to say, hey, I've just downloaded a lot on you. A lot of grace and a lot of mercy is going to follow this. However, I just want to be upfront and legit with you. He's saying, in other words, what he's saying, I know the difference between a real follower and a fake follower. And you're not going to get past me with it. You're not going to dupe me in to me thinking that you are sold out to me. You're not going to dupe me in to you saying, hey, no, I've given my entire life to Jesus. You can't fool me, Jesus is saying. Like, you can't fool me. You know, we mentioned earlier, false teachers lead to false followers. Here's the scary thing is, in this little situation, both the false teachers and the false followers that the false teachers created, neither of them knew that they were false teachers or false followers. They legitimately thought they were legit. Jesus said, they came to me, stood in front of me and said, hey, what's up, Lord? You know me. I did the demon thing. I did that prophesy thing. I did all those things. And I'm here. I heard you've been preparing a place for me. They didn't know. They didn't know until Jesus looked at them and said, I don't know who you are. I think all you've been doing is taking my name and slapping it on your own agenda. I think all you've been doing is taking my story and leveraging it for your gain. Which I think was really neat, and you probably enjoyed that on that big, wide road you walk called life. But the honest to goodness truth is, it wasn't legit. Because you weren't legit. So make some room. That terrifies me. I'll tell you why it terrifies me. Because when I visualize this in my head, when I visualize a false teacher, you know who I see? Me. I see other pastors. The weight of this hits me like a ton of bricks. And then to think of the repercussions. if I'm a false teacher and it creates false followers of Jesus, and then they begin to have influence in their house, in their own home, then they become false teachers. All because I don't have the guts to stand up and say, there's only one Jesus way. And it's hard to say it out loud, but the truth is, it's not hard to realize that there's only one Jesus way. You see, Jesus says it this way. He says, real followers pray for, hope for, and act on the will of God. Real followers pray for, hope for, and act on the will of God. You know, Jesus, just a couple weeks ago, we looked at his words where he said, hey, I want to teach you how to ask and how to seek and how to knock. I want to teach you how to do that. In the same talk that we're walking through the conclusion of this week. In the very same talk, he says, hey, I want to teach you how to seek. And this is how you seek. This is how you pray. Our Father in heaven, holy or hallowed be your name. And in the very first line, other than acknowledging who God is, the very first request that we make, we acknowledge who it is. And the very first thing on the primary focus of when we approach God is, your kingdom come, your will be done. Your kingdom come, your will be done. And so Jesus is saying, hey, if you want to know you're a true follower, if you're sitting here today and you're like, man, I got a little tension. And maybe you're thinking, Clint, I never heard you get so frustrated about some things before. Well, give it a little more time. Just give us a few more weeks. There's other things I'm frustrated about too. But I hope that you see the sense of urgency. And if you feel a little tension, if you're like, hold on a second, I don't want to be the guy who was clueless. And I show up and I'm like, Jesus. And Jesus is like, I don't know your name. If you don't want to be that guy, if you don't like be that girl, and you're feeling some tension, then I would say lean into that tension. Give it some attention. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And God has given us this incredible thing. When we get too close to a fire, our skin starts to burn a little bit. It's like, man, that's hot. And sometimes, though, you put some jeans on. Not my jeans, because they're close to my legs. But some of y'all wear the mom jeans out there, and all of a sudden, you're close to a fire, and your jeans are hot, and you don't realize it till you back up, and it touches your leg. You're like, man, them jeans are hot. You can't take them off because there's people there, though. You know what I'm talking about. Y'all been there? Just me? Okay. You know what I'm saying? But, man, when God gives you them sensors, it says, man, this is a little uncomfortable. It's because you're getting too close to a fire. If right now you feel some tension, give it some attention. Say, okay, all right, what do I do with this? I think here it is. You begin to pray for, hope for, and act on the will of God. Now, I get it. Some people are like, well, Clint, that's easier said than done. It's really not. It's actually pretty easy. There are moments in your life, I'll grant you this, there are moments in your life where it's a huge decision, a big change in career, a big family decision. There are some of those decisions like where you have to mull back over. But the truth is, in your everyday, day-to-day life, it is not difficult for you to know the godly choice and the ungodly choice. If you take a look at it, it's not hard. It isn't hard. You can tell when something aligns with what Jesus wants and when it doesn't. And 99% of the decisions we make, we can do this. And then on those really big decisions, there's another way for us to figure out the will of God. But most of the time, the way we interact with our neighbors, the way we interact with our boss, the way we interact with people who annoy us at work, the way we interact with the person at the checkout line in the grocery store, the decisions we make about our honesty and our integrity, whether we're going to lie about this, or we're going to skimp a little bit on this, whether we're going to hold back on this, those are decisions that are difficult for us to make, but they're not difficult for us to understand this is right and this is wrong. And so if you want to change it, start praying for, hoping for, and acting on the will of God. Now, notice you're like, well, hold on, doesn't hope got a lot to do with pray? No, there's a lot of people who pray some empty prayers, but they don't actually hope it comes true. But that your inner being, is that what you could hope for yourself this morning? That you would say, you would pray, God, I don't want to do the big, huge, enormous freedom worldview. I'm fine with my worldview being very narrow, Because at the end of the day, I don't have to have all the answers to the questions. I just need to know that I'm following Jesus. And I'm going to be okay with that. And not only do I want to pray for it, I actually want to begin to hope for it. It begins to be what gets me up in the morning. It's what I want in my life. It's what I want for my family. That I want that. I don't want to just pray for it. I want it. And when you want it, you'll begin to realize it's a little easier to act on. There will be moments when it's difficult, but most of your decisions day to day, those decisions are doable. You see, Jesus said, let me teach you how to pray. Let me teach you how to seek, ask, and knock. He said, acknowledge who God is. And the first two things are in your mouth. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Now, I also get that it's difficult for that to be primary. When you get in a situation, you're like, okay, first, let me think about this. This is tough. I need God's will to be done in this situation. And that's typically not our first go-to. Maybe that's a more seasoned faith, a more experienced faith that says, hey, first thing in my mind is I'm in a difficult situation, God's will be done. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be primary. It'll grow to be primary. So what needs to happen, though, is when your first thing happens, it's like, I know what I want to happen. Here we go. And then at some point, you'll get a reminder. Maybe it's some inner tension, or maybe it's a mentor in your life, or maybe it's just a moment where you walk outside and you realize, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm a part of a bigger plan. I'm a part of something bigger than myself. And you realize maybe I need to rethink what I want here. Maybe I need to say, hey, God, I know I asked you for something earlier, but the truth is, while I still want that, and I can't figure out how to get that out of my mind, what I want more than that is your will to be done. I'm not going to take back my want. I'm not ready to do that yet. But I am saying, if I've got to choose, and if they're going to be different, if what I want is different from what you want, teach me how to want what you want. Let me begin to want what you want. Because I'm acknowledging right now it's difficult for me. That's part of the journey. Real followers pray for, hope for, and act on the will of God. When I look at this passage, and I remember the first time that I ever read it, actually it was read out loud to me, and that was my reaction. I was like, whoa, we just glanced over. Can you go back? Where was this? Where did Jesus say all these people who know his name and do all these things and have done all these great things are not? Where did he say this? Because I was pretty sure that's not the way. That's not what I grew up learning. I begin to look at it, and it's not just a section. You read the entirety of this talk, and you begin to realize that Jesus is saying, hey, I'm awakening you to something pretty special, and this puts a smile on my face. I hope it puts a smile on your face. He says, hey, here's the deal. Jesus is giving us permission. Not just permission, an encouragement to live a life that's uncommon. Maybe that doesn't resonate with you just yet. Let me walk this out with you for a second. In other words, Jesus is saying, hey, here's the deal. There's this huge road over here, and there's masses of people on it. Man, there's so many people. And they love this. They love this life. They love it. It's great. And there's a small, teeny little road that Jesus is creating this path through the wilderness over here. And it's a life of inconvenience. It's a life of selflessness, not selfishness. It's a life of serving other people. It's a life of reorienting what's most important in our world. It's a life where we actually put action behind our words. It's just not empty words or empty Facebook quotes or empty tweets, but it's actually there's action here that this is the road, this tiny little thin road. It's uncommon. Most people just want to tweet about it. But the uncommon people will tweet about it or they'll do something. And the really uncommon people won't even tweet about it. They'll just get to work doing it. And all of a sudden I begin to realize I got permission. I got permission. That when I sit with my red friends, my Republican friends, I can say, hey, you know what? I agree with some of this stuff, but here's where we're wrong. And here's the deal. If you don't agree with me on it, I don't care. In fact, I don't need you to agree with me on it. Jesus has given me permission to be uncommon. And when I sit with my Democrat friends, the folks that are over here, I can say, hey, you know what? Here's the deal. I don't agree on most of what y'all are talking about. And here's why. But it's what I agree on. But here's the deal. I don't have to get y'all to like me because of this. I don't have to. I don't need you to do that. I don't need either groups of you to do it. You know all I need? I just need Jesus. Because Jesus has given me permission to be uncommon. Jesus has given me permission not to have to fit in anyone else's bubble. Jesus has given me permission not to have to fit on one side of the aisle or the other. Jesus has given me permission not to have to take sides other than his side. Jesus has given me permission to say, you know what, here's the deal. I will admit the masses might go in some other place. The masses might go in some other place, but I don't need them. I can just go with Jesus. I can just go with Jesus. And for me, that is freedom. That's the real freedom. That's the real freedom. That's our statement. A follower of Jesus will be uncommon. Hands down. A follower of Jesus will be uncommon. And I think you'll find that the more people are awakened to your uncommon way of living and your uncommon way of approaching the world, that they'll begin to realize, man, there's something significant about that. There's action behind their words. There's a depth to their cause. There's a realness in why they get up in the morning. And it's not about them or creating their own empire, but it's about this thing that they're pursuing called the kingdom of God. This you belong here movement where people are the destination and Jesus is in the lead. And they have permission to not have to fit in with anybody else, but to ask everyone else to join the movement of the uncommon. Man, that's exciting. That gives me hope. It also gives us direction and vision and clarity at the road in front of us as a church and the work we want to do in this community. It might not always be supported by everyone. It might not always be the sexiest thing for people to get involved with, but it will be the things that Jesus leads us to. And sometimes it might align with one side or the other side, or sometimes neither side, but the truth is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as Jesus is leading us on it. And that will make us uncommon. Because a follower of Jesus will be uncommon. I look forward to the day where I stand face to face with Jesus and he knows my name. To hear my name from the creator of the world, that's a good day. And it is my hope. It's my hope that there are so many people, friends and family, that are walking that uncommon path, the one that Jesus said few will find it because it's uncommon. I think we can do it though. And I think our church can lead in a way that's uncommon, that leads to a growth and a spread in this community that has larger implications and a larger impact. And that other people might begin to see this uncommon thing is pretty special. No matter what we teach on each week at Foundation,